I've just bought someone's next car, the Ford Ka. I bought this car from Facebook Marketplace, and the plan is to do some repair work to it and look to flip it and sell it on for a bit of profit, make a bit of money. So I scrolled and scrolled through Facebook Marketplace trying to find a decent car for the project. And after loads of non-replies to messages and inquiries about other cars, this one actually responded to me. So I went to look at it and took it for a test drive. Everything seemed good, so I bought it. But before I went to view it, I checked out their MOT history on the Gov website. I could see that the MOT was until May next year, but it did have advisories on the front tyres, the near side front suspension arm, and the rear coil springs. Now the bodywork's not too bad, it's just those black wheel trims that make it look a bit naff. This is a 14-year-old car after all, so not too bad considering. But it definitely needed a bit of TLC. So the first inspection of what we're going to be changing, the coil springs look pretty rusty. And this is the front arm that we're going to be changing. So that's the car, let's get going. The first step while it's on the ground is to crack the lug nuts off and give all the bolts that we're going to be removing the good sprayed WD-40. To get the car in the air we need the jack and the axle stands, and then we'll start to get the car up in the air by jacking it up using the cross member across the rear. Once it's up in the air, we'll support the car with the axle stands and remove the jack. Give the bolts a little brush that we're going to be removing, and then get them cracked off with a breaker bar. Now that they're cracked off and I know I can get the bolts out, it's time to remove the wheels. Next we'll remove the bolts from the shock absorber, making sure that the rear frame is supported with the jack first, to make sure that the frame doesn't just fall. And that's both bolts out now, and the rear frame is being supported by the jack. And we'll gently lower that down, and as it comes down the shock absorbers ping out of place. I'm not quite sure if that's how you should do it, but that's how I did it. And the rear coil springs just pull out of place. And there we have it, two rusty, pretty tired looking coil springs removed. And there we go, they came off a lot easier than what I thought it would do. This bolt were a little bit tricky, but just took a bit of time, a bit of persuading. Take your time with it and it'll come out. Let's have a look at some springs then. So these ones are pretty cruddy. We'll use these rubber top hats. Let's take a look off front. See the difference there between the new and the old. Just check and make sure that this is the same size, and they are. So let's get them fitted. So just the way we removed them, we're going to put them back in. The springs just slide into place. The rubber top hat goes on and kind of twists onto the top. And then with the jack we slowly pump the rear frame back up a little bit, just so we can get the shock absorber holes to line up. It took a little bit of persuading to get back into place, but hammer did the job. Pop the bolts back in, buzz them back in with the impact gun just for now. It's just tightened everything back up, and then noticed this nut and washer just there, thinking, oh no, where's that come from? Turns out it's off my jack. Yeah. So now both bolts are back in and the suspension is complete. I've nipped them back up with the breaker bar, but forgot to film it. It's time to get the wheels back on. I just like to put a little bit of copper slip on to stop them seizing on, and get the lug nuts tightened back up. We can also tighten them up properly once the car's back on the ground. And it's time to get it back down. So we jack it back up with that centre beam and then remove the axle stands and get the jack away. And that is job number 1 on the KA done. Part 1 complete. We've got more suspension parts to swap. Pretty happy with that. Bit easier than what I thought. Always a bit daunting doing something you've not done before, but this is what we're here for. Improve his mechanicking skills and learn, get better. So now we move on to job number 2, which is the front near side suspension arm. First we need to get the car up in the air and the axle stand in place, and then we can whip off the front wheel. As you can see, this needed a bit of persuading, a little kick, and off she comes. So again, I'm going around all the bolts that I need to remove for this front suspension arm with a bit of WD-40 first. And as you can see here, this is the pinch bolt that we need to get out from the hub. We also need to remove this front sort of brace, along with the front bumper and this front arm here. Next step is to get the arch lining out of the way, so we can get to the bolts that hold the bumper on. There's just 4 bolts at the top that need to be removed. And then a few underneath as well. As you can see, a couple of them were just spinning, so we had to think on his feet a little bit. So I managed to wedge some pliers in behind the head and then buzz it out with the gun. And there's the bumper coming off. Next we need to remove this lower crash bar, which will give us access to remove that bar that's going to the front of the suspension arm. So I crack these bolts off using the breaker bar first, and then we can just whip out the bolts with the gun. And that is one crash bar removed. So now we're at a position where we need to remove this bolt here and these 2 from underneath, and then this whole arm will come out of the way, which will give us access to the bolt that we need to get the front bolt of the wishbone out. So yeah, bit of a nightmare, but we'll get there. So again, crack the bolts off first with the breaker bar because they are quite tight. My gun's not up to the job. I was quite relieved that no bolts were stuck and everything seemed to move quite freely for such an old car, to be fair. It was a little tight to get the gun into here, so resorted to the ratchet. And now for the 2 bolts underneath at the front, again cracking them off first. And then we're on to the front pinch bolt, which connects the lower arm to the hub. It's just a bolt with a nut on the end, so once the nut's off, just need a bit of persuading to get the bolt out, like so. And then we can knock down the arm to get it removed from the hub. And finally crack off the rear bolt that's holding the suspension arm on. And that's all the bolts removed. Now we have a bit of a wiggle and a bit of a dance to get it out of the way, but eventually it came out. Hello. So there's his old one out, and here's our shiny new one. We'll just make sure that they're the same size, which they are. We'll take the little blue Johnny off and we'll get it whacked in. So we'll do the dance again, but the opposite way to get the arm back in. And once that's in and lined up, we can just replace the bolts. So we're just part way getting it back together. I'll just put this strut brace back on and tightened all the bolts up at the front and the back. One thing I am finding annoying is all the bolts are different sizes. Why can't they just make them all one size? So we've got 15s, 15s, 16, 18, 16, 18. Can't they just make them all, I don't know, 17? So there we have it. We've got the lower suspension arm replaced and we've got the rear springs done. I'm really happy with how it went. So let's get the front bumper back on, get it down off the ramps, and that's all the mechanical work done. So with the crash bar refitted, we get the front bumper back on, making sure that everything lines back up and we've got good gaps around the headlights and the panels where they connect to the wing. Last job pretty much to get the arch lining back in. It's a little bit fiddly, but it went in eventually. Let's get the wheel back on and get it down on the ground. Let's get her off this axle stand and see how she sits. And she's down. And then last job is just to tighten the wheel nuts back up once it's on the ground. And that's job done. Let's get her off the drive and see if the wheels don't fall off and that I've tightened them back up. And there we can see it sitting nicely on those new rear coil springs. Let's take her for a little spin up the road and make sure there's no nasty bangs or squeaks. Let's go. So back from the first little drive and all good. No nasty knocks or bangs or anything like that. But yeah, really pleased, really happy with how it went. By far the biggest mechanicking job that I've done, other than like basic servicing, oil change, you know, plug change, things like that. So yeah, really happy with how it went and excited to see how it turns out in the next video. Join me for the next video. If you've liked what you've seen, found it interesting, or me fumbling about, then give us a like, give us a subscribe, and in the next video I'll go into more on what I paid for the car and how it turns out after a good deep clean and a bit of a polish. And then yeah, let's get it on the market, see if we can get a sale and give someone their next car. It'd be a good run around for someone that doesn't do many miles, or a first car maybe. Thanks for watching, see you next time.